welcome to Today in Woburn. I am very excited to be talking about back to school time. I think this is, yes, the first year I don't actually have any students going back to a school system, which feels very strange for me, but also kind of wonderful, not gonna lie. But as always, Matt Crowley, WPS Superintendent's here to talk with us about getting back into the schools and all the good things that we have coming towards us. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, always. I'm so excited to talk this year because um, we still don't have ourselves back to what most of us might consider fully normal, but we are having all students back in the building this way. Tell us a little bit about how this year's back to school will be different than we had last year.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. We're coming back into the buildings, and so we start there. It feels so much better starting this year than it did last year. When I think back to last year, just to reflect briefly, we were setting up cohorts. We were creating a hybrid schedules. We created a virtual academy. All of these things that we have never really had to do before, and the unknowns were so significant. And I said this to the administrative team, and I'll say it to anybody that wants to listen. I think the Woburn Public Schools did a great job last year. I really do. I'm so proud of how we met the needs of all of our kids last year. I followed up by saying, I know it wasn't perfect. I get that. But, from the distribution of Chromebooks to delivering particularly in-person instruction virtually to our youngest kids all year long, to figuring out how to schedule those things. And then, all of that really goes back to some of the planning, but the teachers did, and the staff in the Woburn Public Schools did an amazing job last year. And they deserve all the credit because, it was an incredible challenge, right? And we had people teaching virtually in empty classrooms in our school all year long, and they never gave up on themselves, on our kids. And so I really genuinely, I want to express my appreciation and gratitude to everybody that made last year so successful, despite obviously the overwhelming challenges that we faced. And that being said, this year it feels so much better, right? So
Thank goodness, Matt.
oh,
That's right. It's a long time coming. We all deserve that.
yeah, it feels so good. We've had new teacher orientation. We've been able to hire many new folks into the district in a variety of different capacities. So that was 3 days of new teacher orientation last week, and we're wearing masks, right? So that's really the difference inside the schools, and just that's precaution, and we need to do that. Today we had our first day with the entire faculty. Ordinarily, we would have gone to the high school and done the convocation, as a large group. We made the decision about a week and a half ago to have staff just report to their own buildings. And we did the opening via Zoom and remote, and that worked out great because afterwards I was able to get out to a few of the schools. The feedback was positive. I think people appreciate the idea of being back together in person with each other and talking about teaching and learning, and really that's what we're here for. So yes, there are some things that are different.
Congratulations on a Herculean feat of staffing all the positions, because not only did we have a number of open positions to fill, we also had to juggle, right? Because some teachers were doing remote, some teachers were doing specials in different ways than they had before. Like there was a lot more shifting, I imagine, this year than we typically have.
Yeah, that's very accurate. Yes. So we had last year, again, we were pulling people from a variety of different places to create virtual teachers. The specialists were virtual and so moving everyone back into their regular capacity has been a Herculean feat, to use your words. And so again, it feels really good. We are we're poised for a great year.
Awesome. Now, are we fully staffed, or do we have some positions that we are still looking to hire for this school year?
We have a couple openings. Things happen last minute, of course, in any school district. It's not unique to Woburn. I think specifically as an example, uh, Dr. Linda Riley, who was an EL teacher at the Linscott, became the interim principal at the Alta Vesta. And so that creates an elementary EL position that is posted. So those kinds of things, they're not overwhelming, but those happen. And, we have, we're meeting the challenge there.
That's great. One of the things is we don't have a remote option this year in the same way we did last year, but we do have a lot of the infrastructure and learnings from having remote options last year. What are some of the ways we might be using that technology, or just the things that we learned to support a fully in classroom environment this year?
Yeah. So one of the things that I did last year was sent out a survey to staff. I called it Silver Linings. In other words, what do we learn that we can want to use again? And so a couple of things that we're going to do as it relates to staff. First, we had last year grade level meetings at the elementary schools uh, on Google Meet. And so people really enjoyed that. So we're going to keep that. So monthly, all grade 3 teachers in the Woburn Public Schools will join together virtually because now we know how. And it's created a cohesion and this collaborative structure in a way that we wouldn't have been able to do pre-pandemic. And so we've also been able to have some meetings, so even this, right? Like we're on Zoom versus being in person. And does the caliber, I think I prefer being in person, but we're able to have
I love
meetings.
being in the room with you, Matt, but the important information is we get information out there, right?
Yeah,
So that's,
yeah,
I agree with you. It's a great
yeah,
mechanism.
yeah. So, I think, being online is not, nothing replaces what happens between a teacher and a student in the classroom. But that being said, have our staff develop professional development that they never would have? Yes. Have I? Yes. And have our kids? Absolutely. And so, I think particularly we're going to be a one-to-one district from grades 6 through 12. And so all the kids will have a Chromebook that goes back and forth with them every day. We have a one-to-one available at all, because of last year at the elementary level. But we really want the kids not to be on screens all the time. And so, and even the secondary level shouldn't necessarily be on screens, but the capacity for them to do homework and things of that nature via Google Classroom certainly exists independently. So trying to take advantage of what we learn, the silver linings. And the other thing for families as it relates to the technology would be the ability to have meetings virtually. So whether that's a 504 meeting, an IEP meeting, again, parents are welcome to come into the school for meetings. But what we found in feedback from families was it might be more convenient to have a meeting, particularly if it's a 30-minute meeting. You don't have to take a half a day or a day off from work. You can schedule it around your lunch. We had better attendance at meetings last year. And, folks that are working, I think appreciate the flexibility. And so we're going to sustain that as well. So hopefully, we trying to make lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah, those are great examples. I'm really excited to hear about those. We do know that masks are required through the end of October, and for anybody on school grounds, right? With whatever medical exceptions, that's sort of a given. But and we do know from last year that we didn't have big compliance issues with masks. Students really adapted quite well and were super compliant. Going into this year, if someone refuses to wear a mask, are there disciplinary issues at hand, or how will that be handled?
Yeah, so I understand the question. I think I want to first of all point out that last year we didn't really have any issues. And, a year ago at this time, I was concerned about that issue.
Yeah.
I think, genuinely less than a handful. And I think everyone wants to be back in school. And this is something that allows us to be back in school. And so, we are trying to proactively get the messaging out to families. All of our staff are masked, we're not looking to create disciplinary issues at all. It's just, this is what will allow us to return to quote as normal as possible, and to try to take a proactive approach through counseling or reach out to families individually. It's certainly not something that we're very overly concerned about, because we had such great success last year.
It's good. I'm really happy to hear that. That's what we all hoped would be the case. And I think you're right. I think people want to be in the classroom and are looking forward to it. Um, let's talk a little bit about school lunches. So this year, lunch for all students is available at no cost as an extension from last year. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, in fact, it's breakfast and lunch is free for all Woburn Public Schools students.
Right. Now, there's lots of amazing feedback we get on doing that. Like, that's incredible for families who need it. There's also lots of feedback about the quality of lunch sometimes. And, sometimes we look at what's around us and not around us and what we might send our own children with or not. And just to go on record, one of my children who has some sensory things brought a cold can of Chef Boyardee every day for a year. So no one will ever get judgment from me about the food that we send our children with. Sometimes you send them with the things they're going to eat. And that happened to be, I poured it into a thermos because it made me feel better. But honestly, that was nothing there. But there have been, questions and concerns raised about how do we make sure that the quality of the food that we're sending home, because we are providing it at no cost to everyone, does that have an impact on quality, and how do we mitigate any risk that introduces?
To be honest with you, haven't really heard that issue that, raised directly to me, other than what you just asked.
Totally fair.
I do, I understand the question to some extent. I think because of COVID, it's limited the menu, right? Like people aren't going into the salad bars like buffet restaurants the way we used to. And so our food service department has to sort of react accordingly. Lisa Tumayan, who's head of our food service, I actually want to give her and this food service department a huge shout out, because we shut down in March 13th of 2020, and they never stopped.
Yeah.
I mean, we've served thousands and thousands and thousands of meals, and so I really am deeply appreciative of what they do for our kids. And again, going into this year, will lunch look a little different than it would if we were back fully, particularly at the elementary level? Yes, because we have to take some mitigating factors into consideration.
Awesome. Well, thank you for confirming those things for us. One of the things that we know is that there's always coming into Woburn new families, right? That's not new. That happens all the time. People maybe who've been in Woburn, but it's their first child in the school system. This year, you have a combination of kindergartners who were remote last year, maybe going into first grade for the first time. And all the schools, I think the principals try to do a pretty good job of communicating with their schools, but there isn't sort of a central new family orientation program, at least none that I've seen. Is that something that we might look at doing in the future? And if we were to do that, how might we go about supporting an effort like that?
Yeah, so I appreciate the question. One of the things that I'd like to think about creating in the near future would be a parent information center, sort of a standalone entity, maybe not even housed at a school, but somewhere in the community, so that new families would have a place to go to register or to get questions answered and so forth. Adriana Mendez Sheldon, who's been our family and community engagement liaison, is amazing and doing a wonderful job trying to engage all families. And we're adding a part-time position to help support her and her work.
That's great news. I guess I sort of knew it, but it didn't sink in. So I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, and so I say that because again, her position is, I think, 2 years old. So these positions are new to the Woburn Public Schools. And then circling back to your question about how information gets disseminated, I think we've gotten better about principals sending information at the same time, hopefully. That was something that, we tried to.
Teacher assignments. That was a big hot button for a while
Oh,
there.
oh, I know. Yeah, yeah, I mean, that isn't that what all the kids look for in the summer? But
we used to drive by the buildings, right? When it used to have to be on paper on the doors. I remember, not that long. My kids
Yeah.
used to like take their bikes over and go check out who's in the classroom.
Yeah, yeah. So, but that being said, yeah, can we get better at unifying it? Absolutely. I think the parent, like a centralized registration parent center, may be helpful in that. And I also, one of the things that I'm cognizant of is each school has its own DNA, right? So how they present information and share information to families, I don't want to take away that individuality of each school either.
Yeah. I think that's great. Even sometimes people, those of us who have like kids in the school system. So I remember I had already a child in high school, but I had never done drop off. Right. And so this very nice Woburn police officer scolded me because I went, clearly where the bus is supposed to go, not knowing that there's a little side street. As soon as you know where it is, it's super easy to find. But unless you know where it is, there's no signage or anything to tell me that. So just things like that I think are always helpful for people who've been here a long time and new folks. So thank you for doing it. I'm super thrilled that Adriana will have some help because she is doing some incredible work, and this will allow us to do even more. Before I let you go, anything else that you want families to know as they get ready? Time is ticking, just hours. You can count hours before those students walk into those hallways, and I bet you there'll be a lot of celebrating and clapping. And then maybe after the first 3 or 4 weeks, the novelty of being back in school will wear off, and you might get some begrudging, I've got homework again moments. But it'll be a really great year.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm really excited, genuinely, to get all of our kids back in buildings. It's nice today to walk around and see staff back in buildings and having great conversations with each other. And so getting our kids back is and safely is our priority. And really looking forward to a great year. I believe that we are set up to have another very successful school year. If families have any specific questions about protocols at any of their schools, my advice would be to reach out to the building principal, because again, each building is set up slightly differently. So, the protocol at the Reeves might be different than the Alta Vista, and so forth, particularly at the elementary. So the building principals, I have great confidence, have great, their plans are ready. People are excited and looking forward to a great year.
Yeah, the principals are great. I mean, I've had multiple children go through the school systems, and all my interactions with them have always been really super helpful. So Matt, thank you as always for joining us. Good luck this week, and thank you to all the teachers and all the staff, right, who have prepared to get the classrooms ready for the return of all those little feet and bodies and happy noises that will be entering the hallways again. So thrilled to have you on.
Great, thank you again. Appreciate your time.
Excellent. So I do want to talk a little bit. I want to introduce Kimberly Higgins, who's the founder of the Preschool Social Academy. Not all of our students are ready for public school systems in kindergarten or in grade school, but many of us are have little ones that we are looking to have extended learning experiences, have a place to go when working, just get out of our hair for a little while, if we're being honest. Welcome, Kimberly.
Hi, what a treat it is to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm really excited to have you here. One of the reasons I invited you on is you certainly have some great family history here in Woburn and have a school very near us, but also you've had a very successful record on keeping COVID out of the preschool environment, and really want to sort of dig into some of the things that you've done to make it a safe environment. But before we do that, let's just give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the preschool program that you run, and a little bit about what the school's about.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So PSA was founded in 2008 in Woburn, actually. And in 2016, we moved to Winchester. So we serve children ages 2 to 5. So that's toddler, preschool, and pre-K. During the pandemic, we actually pivoted and we opened a kindergarten like in 2 weeks.
Oh, congratulations and wow again.
I know, it was really something to see that all come together. Hats off to the teachers that pulled that off with their hard work. But we did have an influx of more pre-K age students this year. So we closed our, well, we pivoted again and we changed it over to a pre-K classroom. But that's kind of what it's been about. We started the pandemic with 49 students, and now we have 90 students enrolled in the preschool. So we've really just tried to meet the demands of the town and the surrounding area as much as possible.
Yeah, that's incredible. Tell us a little bit about. I think you mentioned to me when we were talking earlier that there have been no COVID cases in the school. Now, nothing's guaranteed, but you've been very fortunate, and the safety measures you've put in place have been holding strong.
Yeah, so we're certainly aware that COVID is on our doorstep and could come in at any time, but things that we are doing to mitigate that. So we send our students and teachers home immediately if they're showing any symptoms whatsoever. Make sure we have a lot of coverage in the building for that, which isn't always easy in a labor shortage. Have to work a little harder and go the extra mile and make sure you really have enough people in the building for that. And then we ask for guidance from their pediatrician before they come back. A lot of parents will say, oh, do they need a test? And we'll say, we don't know. We're not doctors. We don't claim to be doctors, but we're going to do whatever your pediatrician tells us. And certainly they come back and they say, oh, it's just seasonal allergies, and we welcome them back in. But we definitely do look for that guidance from the doctor before making any kind of decision. We invested in very large air purifiers. We chose the Medify brand. A lot of the Boston preschools did. And so Medify will, depending on the size of your room, and then you would just measure your room and you would buy that purifier for that space, that amount of square footage. We went really high and got extra. And so it cleans our air every 15 minutes. And then aside from that, our HVAC system was installed brand new just 5 years ago. So we have HEPA hospital grade filters in there. I think they're HEPA 13. But don't quote me on that because I'm not the HVAC.
Don't worry, I wouldn't know what that number meant, but
but I can tell you.
Sounds important.
We were like, how often are you supposed to change them? They said every 6 months. And we said, we're going to do every 3 because we just wanted it really clean and air moving through. There was a lot of research on that early on in the pandemic that we were following closely. But yeah, correct. We've been reopened over a year now, and I'm very proud to report that due to mostly the teachers' hard work, we have had 0 COVID cases to date.
That's excellent. Now, you do have some young ones, right? So the 2-3-year-olds, and we know that mask wearing can sometimes be hard, as can pants wearing and shoes wearing at that age, right? Tell us a little bit about how you've been managing that with the super young ones.
Absolutely. So I want to start with the older ones too, though, because what we found really exciting and interesting was that like masks have become the new t-shirt graphic. So one will have like Elsa and Frozen, and the other one will have like Spider-Man, and really, truly, they are excited to wear them and show them off. They kind of have moved past. They're just so happy to be here with their friends again. The younger ones, we're trying. So it's like a hat, right? So I mean, like the 2-year-olds are not quite 2 yet. It's all about exposure is key. So they're seeing the teachers wearing them, and it's sort of like a hat, right? Like you put it on and they take it off. You put it on, they take it off. But I would so much rather see a toddler walking around, like this.
Yes.
Or like this, because that to me is a start, and we can certainly learn and grow from there.
That's
as they
great.
see more. But masks were not new to children. They didn't walk in and see masks for the first time here. I mean, they saw families outside jogging with masks or biking, and they were at the grocery store and they saw people in masks. So it's becoming more and more the norm.
So one of the things I love about the pictures that you share on social, the kids look like they're having a blast. I want to come and do all the activities that they're doing in the classrooms, and age-appropriate activities. Of course, sometimes I want to do like a 4-year-old age-appropriate activity because it can throw my brain off. But looks like they're doing really fun things. And I know you spend a lot of time outside. Tell us a little bit about how you fit in outdoor time, and obviously that supports some air flow things.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah. So we're a Reggio inspired program, and we have what we call an outdoor classroom here. So you wouldn't really see swings or a slide or things like that in our playground. It's more, we're bringing the activities outside with us to do. So you might see tables set up with art, and then over here you might see building blocks, and then over there you might see some gross motor balance beam kind of things going on. But what we love about that is we can change it out every day. A slide or a swing is great, but it can only be that one thing. It can only be a slide, it can only be a swing. They tend to get bored really easily with it, whereas we can switch this out. When we do want, though, we are lucky that we are just sort of adjacent to the town playground. And so it's basically our backyard, and we go there all the time for their tennis courts and their basketball courts. But we spend a ton of time outside. There's a saying, there's no bad weather, just bad clothing.
I like that.
So,
I identify with that, Kimberly, because when I first moved to college, I had actually not lived in the United States in a number of years, and I hadn't had a winter in forever. And I was all about dressing to look cute. And then I realized that that's insane. And all I needed was warm boots and a big coat that hid everything about me. I wish I had known that saying.
I know it's hard because not every parent can remember every glove, right? Like we all know how the mornings can get. So we have tons of extra hair, just extra, extra, extra. If you forget, no problem. We have plenty of extras. But yeah, dress them properly and you head out, right? We eat outside. We complete our art outside. We do as much as possible outside during the day. And the children love it.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I bet you they sleep better at the end of the day.
They sure do. They sure do. And it wasn't a sort of our creation in 1918. They took all of the children outdoors during the pandemic to learn.
Yeah, so awesome. I'm really excited to hear about that. It looks like you're doing some great, incredible things. For families who are either about to go back to preschool environments, or maybe they're considering enrolling their students for the first time in a new location, what are some things that they should be keeping in mind as they think about their choices?
Yeah, I would definitely look for a smaller sized classroom if you can, and you don't want kids moving around too much. You want them to kind of stay in their own pod so that, you know, just in case there is some sort of exposure, the whole school doesn't have to shut down. You can keep it sort of contained in quarantine. A sink in every classroom for sure is really important. Everyone should be in masks. Certainly the teachers should be in masks, or whatever the mandate is at that time. Like masks have sort of come and gone a little bit too, but definitely following, it should be very clear when you walk in that they're following whatever the mandate is at the time. Lots of outside time is very, very important. Teachers who care about the cleanliness in their environment. Like if you walked in and the puzzles are all like stuffed together and like the dolls are all hanging out. So you want like clean shelves, right? You want to be able to look at that shelf and be like, that shelf has been recently cleaned. Not how would I even begin to take the things out to clean that shelf. So you want to look for less clutter, those kinds of things. And not a lot of soft toys, things that can be easily sterilized at the end of the night. All preschools should be sterilizing toys each night. And we've always done this. This is not new for the pandemic. There's a certain bleach solution that we use, and we spray it on the toys at night and it air dries. It needs 12 hours before the children can play with it again.
You know, I think we forget that COVID has rightfully so taken up our mind, but you know, kids are that snot running down their nose and they're germy and they've got stuff. So the protocols that you're talking about are good, healthy hygiene things for a school to do in all cases.
Yeah, I mean, there's been talk in the field of like, hey, these masks are like really great. Like no one's getting the flu, like it's not spreading. There's this like RSV thing that happens in places, and that's not like, we're not seeing a lot of that in the programs that are masked. I can't say every program, but yeah, there's talk of maybe the teachers are like, well, I'm gonna wear my mask for the next flu season. So it's becoming more and more kind of the norm.
Yeah, I'm never going to a doctor's office again without wearing a mask. I don't know why I didn't forever, except it never crossed my mind. So awesome. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your school and the things that you're doing. As families are getting back to older students going into regular school systems, it's this time of year that they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with their younger students. And before we go, just kind of a quick recap. Preschool offers lots of things for lots of learning minds. In addition to safe environment, which we've talked a lot about, what are some of the other benefits of enrolling in some type of preschool program?
Absolutely, there are countless benefits. We all know that the brain is rapidly growing and developing in that important 3 to 5 age. Um, it's doubling in size, and it's been proven that for every dollar you spend in early education, you can expect a return of about $5 back. It's quite the investment for your little ones.
I love it. I do remember a time as a parent where I had 3 kids in sort of a preschool environment at the same time. And it was financially hard. I'm not going to say it wasn't, but it was such an enriching experience for each of them to have environments outside of what we did at home. So we were really grateful to be able to do that. So, as always, thank you so much for joining us, Kimberly, and sharing all the great work that you're doing at the Preschool Social Academy. And as always, Woburn, please continue to take good care of each other.